My name is Benjamin Wiker, author of The Darwin Myth, A Meaningful World, and The Catholic Church and Science. I'm a senior fellow at the Envoy Institute, the St. Paul Center for Biblical Theology, and at the Discovery Institute. Welcome to the Catholic courses and this lecture series on the 7 myths about the Catholic Church and science. Now, there's more than a little confusion about the relationship of the Catholic Church to science. All too often, it's presented in the popular media and even in history books as if it's a relationship of antagonism, a war, an endless battle between the forces of darkness and superstition, the church, and reason, science. Now, during these lectures, we will dispel this myth about the relationship between the Catholic Church and science. The truth is that contrary to how things are popularly presented, the Church is, always has been, the great patron and protector of science. Now, I know that you may find that hard to believe. You've heard about the whole Galileo affair, how the Church snatched Galileo, slammed him into a dark dungeon, tortured him for days on end so that, worn out by pain and humiliation, he finally was forced into saying that the earth was stationary and flat. Now, the first thing to remember about the whole Galileo thing is that, and you'll soon find this out in more detail, it's not true. In fact, it's a myth, if it's not an outright lie, as is the whole popular notion that the Catholic Church is even at war with science. The truth is, if I may put it in a single word, that the Church is the greatest friend to science. Not a flatterer, but a friend. Now, how are we going to begin to understand this? We're looking for a brilliant and insightful image by which we can grasp the essence of something we always turn to G.K. Chesterton. Although I'm not going to use an image about the relationship of church to science as he presented it, I'm going to use an image taken from Chesterton's orthodoxy, in which he describes the church as a heavenly chariot thundering through the ages, which along its perilous path leaves the dull heresies sprawling and prostrate, even while the church itself remains the truth, wild, reeling, but erect. For Chesterton, the church was a carefully balanced chariot careening through history, reeling and dodging first this way and that, almost tipping over to one side, then pulling back to the other, all in its attempt to avoid destructive heresies. Reeling away from the heresy of Arianism, the all too fashionable belief that Jesus Christ was a mere creature. Swerving away from the dangers of Gnosticism that would deny Christ's humanity and the goodness of material creation. Whirling away from Pelagianism that would deny the sovereign necessity of God's grace. Wheeling away from Calvinistic predestination that would destroy free will. The church thundering through history, carefully balanced on the knife edge of truth, avoiding the fall into error on either side. To have fallen into any of these open traps of error and exaggeration, said Chesterton, which fashion after fashion and sect after sect set along the historic path of Christendom, well, that would have been simple. It is always simple to fall. There are infinity of angles at which one falls, only one at which one stands. Now, I don't expect to be understood at this point when I say that Chesterton has indeed captured, in some important senses, the truth about the relationship of the Catholic Church to science. We might find it hard to think about the Church as a charioteer swinging madly left and right to avoid scientific heresies. Well, if we listen to what we're told from most popular accounts, we're more likely to envision science as the stately, stable, and glorious chariot taking humanity along a straight path from darkness to light, from superstition and ignorance to the truth. And the church? Well, the church, we're told, is something like a bedraggled old man on a donkey, at first clumsily and stupidly getting in the way of the great chariot of science, and then, once it's gone past, clumping sulkily behind it. Against all expectations, then, I will be making the case that Chesterton's vision of the church as a chariot swerving to avoid errors to the left and the right is also an entirely appropriate image of the Catholic Church's relationship to science. Except that I want to emphasize a very important aspect. The Church is not swerving to avoid science itself, but errors in science. Errors that would actually harm science. Errors that would harm humanity. Now, I want to avoid a misunderstanding here. I'm going to state plainly that the Church does not dictate the substance and the detail of the various sciences. Well, for that matter, neither do the scientists. The particular reality under consideration determines the substance and the details of each science, and thence judges the truth or falsehood of human scientific conjectures. The entomologist is not in the seat of ultimate authority in regard to insects. Rather, the insects themselves have the last say in sorting out truth from falsehood in the entomologist's theories. The stars themselves declare which astronomers are orthodox and which are heretics. The earth has the ultimate say against any geologist, no matter how prestigious his credentials. Nature itself, in all its profound complexity and mystery, is the ultimate authority over scientists. Now, if the Church doesn't dictate the substance or the detail of any of the sciences, it does watch with great care the proper parameters of the sciences and the general and sometimes particular and peculiar assumptions of the scientists. Now, here it must judge. And the reason is both simple and profound. Scientists are human. And sometimes the Church must step in to remind them of their limits, especially those limits that safeguard their own humanity. Just as in regard to Christian orthodoxy, the Church stepped in to safeguard both Christ's